Hey everybody, wake up, it's noon!
Oh yeah, some of you people are not used to being awake at this hour, are you?
Yeah, we're still working on that whole opening sequence thing. There's a whole lot of stuff here.
Oh Jesus. Okay, hang on.
Yep.
Let's see
And
now.
welcome to Game Gallery, where we talk about stuff revolving around gaming and certain games that we talk about things. And I am Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer, coming at you with.
The Duggernaut.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How you
It's one of those things. Oh, wait, I kind of messed that up there. This is
doing?
all darkness.
Oh. Okay.
It's
Cool.
no longer all darkness.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
so
hello.
here we are. Again, this was me talking to the camera. So for those of you guys that are like watching, hey, how you doing? Feel free to leave something in the comments because you're going, hey, wait, they're still working their stuff out. I don't get up this early.
Yeah. As someone who loves the rare days where he can actually sleep in until 8, the idea of being still groggy at noon from just waking up is very foreign to me.
Yeah. Oh, look, I got a day job. I
Day
do all
job.
this
No,
stuff
I
for
got a
other
kid.
people. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I can make fun of you that now. Yeah, I can't sleep because of all the crying and the pulling and the what has the kid broken and how is it going to make itself bleed and scream now
No,
type stuff.
today my daughter decided to wake me up by taking my pants from the floor, climbing up onto the bed, and laying them on top of me. Just like, hey, you. Oh no, and then she reached over and took my glasses off of the nightstand and like unfolded them and then tried to like jam them onto my face. I'm like, okay, I get the idea. You want me up? What do you want? Are you hungry? Are you... Yeah, no, she wanted pancakes, so she got pancakes.
Of course she wanted
Yeah.
pancakes. Yeah. I mean, again, it's really one of those things where like the kids don't quite understand tired because they
No.
don't have to stay awake.
Well,
But
they
as
do
we
if
get
they want
older,
to.
no. They get. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to go to sleep. So I'm not gonna go to sleep. But they haven't put together that cranky and tired have a direct correlation.
Right. That has not even remotely been connected yet. There's just I'm having fun. Why do I hate everything? I'm so mad. I don't want to sleep. I'm just mad, and then wake up. Everything's fine now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That
I'll tell you what trips me out though. It's she'll be sleeping like a rock. Like just dead asleep, right?
right.
Whether it's like sleeping all night or whatever it is, just dead asleep. And then she wakes up, and I'm used to like, okay, I wake up groggy, bleary eyed. Okay, I gotta like look around, figure out where I am. No, she wakes up, and it's like goes from 0 to 60. It's like, okay, I'm awake. Let's go.
Yeah, and I remember I was once like that at about the same age because your kid's hitting 2.
Yeah, next month. This
Don't-
month. We're in July now. Later
Yeah,
this month.
don't worry, it's gonna go away. Because when it went away with me, I'll tell you, I've never been able to recover it. I wake up and I'm just like, yeah, let's go. No, let's
No.
go. Yeah, let's go back to sleep. I'm just gonna lay here. Just
Yep.
I gotta be at work at 8. It's now 6, so I'm gonna lay here till at least 6:45. That,
Yep.
6:45 is good. So I promise it won't last forever.
Yeah, everybody tells me that things are gonna be real.
It'll
good.
just feel like forever.
Oh yeah, that much I already can agree to. But everybody says that when they're for ages about 4 to 12, it's gonna be real great, just great. They're smart, they're able to handle their own stuff. Everything's great. So until 4, it's gonna be bad, and after 12, well, she's a girl, so
Yeah, which means you are going to be going through the father thing, and
Yeah.
I despise gender roles. I
Oh,
really and truly do. But that whole idea of if you have a boy, you have to worry about him, but if you have a girl, you have to worry about every boy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, by the time your daughter hits high school, that will have lessened. Hopefully, by the time your grandchildren will hit high school, that'll no longer be a thing.
Wishful
But as
thinking,
long as it is,
Yeah.
As long as it is, it's real. So yeah, I have been reeling myself.
Yeah.
I've been reeling. Well, this is a week. Okay, this is technically my Monday, and because of the success of last week, not necessarily in viewership, bring a friend, huh? But in just depth of transmission, I live casted 4 or 5 days last week. Yeah, I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
We have a comment that my mic is not on.
Oh, your mic isn't on. Oh, your mic should be on.
Okay.
Speak.
I'm speaking. Are we getting?
Go ahead, keep talking.
I'm keep talking. Talking.
Oh, your mic is most definitely on.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So, wait, what chat are you in?
Oh, my friend messaged me.
Hey, Kieran. Hey, Kieran just showed up. Poofed. Well, have them leave the comments in the regular YouTube chat.
All right. Anybody who's watching right now, leave your comments in the YouTube live chat. I am monitoring it, so I will see your comments.
Yeah. So but yeah. So yeah, between Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday last week, I'm just like, oh,
you have
so
a
this is my
busy-
life now. This is my life now.
Live streaming schedule, which I have to, you're cheating on me with a hobby podcast now, and I've got some words, man. You're going, I love the hobby side of this, and here I am stuck on the game gallery. Well, you're cheating on me with some fine bearded young man. Talking about hobby stuff while I have to sit there and watch it through a screen and comment in the YouTube chat and like and subscribe. How dare!
Come on, baby. You know you were my first. You know.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you say that to all of your co-hosts.
No, just most of them. But no, seriously, it was. Ooh, man, sorry about that bump. But no, seriously, it was. All right, let me tell you how that came about. Okay, let me explain. Let me explain, honey. Let me explain.
You got some
Okay.
explaining to do.
Yeah, I got some explaining. As you know, Thursday is normally the day for table talk, and that's when DW comes over and we live stream at like god awful AM. Okay, we start at 11. Same, we pretty much do the same type of cast that we do today. But this is a big difference. Everything was cool, but he is a working voice actor.
Right.
Okay. And so Monday, we good for Thursday? I got a topic. Yeah, we're good so far. Cool. Wednesday morning. So we good for tomorrow? I got a topic. And he's like, yeah, so far we're good. I'll be there at the normal time. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. So we're really good for tomorrow. Ooh, I just got called into set tomorrow. Yeah, so it really came down to
Literally that.
I'm like, damn it, do I not broadcast on Thursday, or do I give the audience something? Well, I have been kicking around that hobby thing, the hobby aspect and stuff, but who can be at my house at 11 a.m. on Thursday morning?
Right.
Looking through the people, it's summer vacation.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave. How you doing, bud? You doing good? How's the wife?
Yep.
You want a soda? Can I please have your help?
Can you please show up last minute tomorrow?
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
We had a good show. I got to give credit where it's due. I really I enjoyed watching that show, and you guys talked about some good stuff. And I look forward to future hobby episodes. And if you ever, I'm just gonna put it out there. If you ever want to do a combined game gallery hobby hangout, live show, I would be happy to have not even good at stuff in with me and do a combined show.
I'm sure you would. It's just a matter of there's being happy to help and being capable to help. With the full-time job, the 2-year-old, the traffic, and the fact that you need to be home and asleep by 11?
Usually, yeah.
So,
that waking up at 6 in the morning has that effect.
Thank you. So, don't think that you weren't one of my first calls or one of my first thoughts, but I can't pay you as much as you're making at your day job.
It's true. And 11 a.m. on a Thursday is definitely some pretty prime day job time. Though, to be fair, I'm usually thinking about hobby stuff at my day job. So, I've got that going for me.
Yeah, that is a thing. That is truly a thing. Let's see. Checking the chat here. People are talking to you. Oh, what? What? You guys have a problem with my show? Yeah, no, just.
Well, our good friend Rick Hardslab here is.
Yeah, that's a name. That's a name.
That's
I
my
mean,
buddy. He's been using that name as his online handle for probably over 10 years at this point. And
hey,
we've always gotten a kick out of it because it's almost a porn name, but not quite.
It's not almost a porn name.
Uh-huh.
It's there by about 10 yards.
No, it's really not.
Yeah, it really is. What, you think it wouldn't be one if he used the other abbreviation for Richard?
No, that would be more of a porn name.
Yeah, exactly. But that does not mean that Rick Hartslab is not the name of an adult film person or the name an adult film actor would take.
Fair enough. Well, it's definitely funny to see him flying around in a spaceship with that over the top of the ship, as his handle.
Okay, well, yeah. I guess, good to meet you out there, Rick, and I look forward to your instructional manual of how to make love at a woman. So, but with that, we've got, what was it? Camel care, camel. Yeah, the camel care, camel lover, camel.
Camo heart.
Oh, camo, as in camouflaged heart.
Yes, camouflaged heart.
Hope you out there watching, darling. This episode is for you. Because there was a question that was posed, and we normally spend a little bit longer. Oh, wait, I got to do the thing because we're live casting on YouTube. Hey, YouTube. And since the new YouTube thing is begging for likes and subscribes and hitting the freaking notification button with the subscribe, they always do that in like the first 30 seconds of videos now instead of at the end. So now, since I got y'all here, I have to say, if you like the show, help the channel grow, and subscribe, bring friends, do the sharing, leave comments. We pick people every week that leave comments after this posts to get key change, which puts them in the drawing for some other cool Back in the Deck merch.
Yeah, nice keychains too.
Yeah. Oh, wait, look at you. He's like, yeah, nice key. Oh, look at that. Yep.
Yeah, durable too. I had one on my keyring for quite a while. Eventually, it was one of the early prototypes, and it still lasted for, I don't know, quite a while before it ended up breaking down.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been improved significantly since then.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, my God, have they. But yeah, so, and just to let you guys know that we do answer questions and we do read the comments. Today's show is going to be answering a serious game question that was posed to the Doug or Not between last week's show and this week's show. And God, when did I get my radio show voice happening here? Today we're gonna talk about how gamers smell different from everybody else, and but yeah, a question was posed, and for those of you guys new, we are Back in the Deck Productions, and everything we talk about from the perspective of, or answering the perspective of, people of color, LGBT, women, the disabled, and I need to put this on the head of the website, the rural poor.
Yeah.
Because people of color and the rural poor, we got way more in common than you guys might think. The trailer park is right next to the projects, man. Yep. So with that, there was a question that was posed about, being a person of color in games, and the question that was posed we'll get to in a bit. But one of the things I want to do, since we've got new people here, and it's like, well, if you've got all those things, why is it that your co-host is a middle-class white guy? So I'm going to let Doug actually explain a little bit about what his journey and learning what we do from me as personal experience has been over the past few years.
Well, let's see, where to even start on that. As a middle-class white guy who grew up in the suburbs of Long Beach, California, I didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of other cultures. I didn't have. No, you laugh, but I mean it's.
Oh no, I'm laughing at the fact that my head just totally ended up in your shot.
Oh well, yeah. New camera angles will sometimes do that. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of exposure to other cultures, other anything, and it wasn't for any sort of malicious lack of trying to shield me from from the world or anything. It was just that's kind of how suburban white culture is just the that lack of
anything else.
of anything else. Yeah. So I ended up meeting Solar. God, what, probably 8 years ago, thereabouts.
Not that long. No, it was more like
6,
yeah,
5 or 6.
Well, no, I would say 4. It was about 4 years.
Well, whatever it was.
I'll look at the archive footage.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about and bonded over was the idea of, my experiences in gaming and how, through no fault of my own, I just hadn't been exposed to other ways of looking at game stuff than being a white dude, being a middle-class white dude, and everything is made for middle-class white dudes.
A competitive middle-aged white dude.
Yeah.
That's an important part.
Well, we've talked about the competitive stuff before, but specifically the idea that, like, I had never taken a minute to examine the fact that everything Tolkien produced, everything that just any media that is being pulled from to make games, to make any sort of miniature stuff, supplements, anything like that, is all defaulting to the idea that a middle-class white male is the target audience. And so everything is being made with me in mind. And I never noticed because, of course, I'm the target audience. Everything looked great. Everything was just fine. And so I never spent any amount of time thinking about what that meant or what it was like for people who didn't have stories that were written with me as the main character or a me analog. And for me, every Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter I saw was just like, oh yeah, sure, that's normal. That's my story on the screen. I can relate to that. That's just fine. And I just never really made the connection that there was so much that wasn't being presented because I just never thought about it. And that was one of the things that you and I have talked considerably about over the years. It's just the idea of what that looks like from the other side and what it feels like from the other side and ways to try and lessen that effect. Which I try to do. I still stumble many times, but...
Hey, we all do. Truth be told, being a person of color, I am a person of color, so I see the stuff through the lens, like when we talk about post-apocalypse stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my stance on post-apocalypse, I don't enjoy it because my childhood was spent scavenging for resources and running away from raiders. We called them gangsters, but they did the same thing. So that's not escapism from my point of view. However, I don't know what a woman's point of view is with a lot of this fiction, but I have noticed that there's fridging or rape as a character device.
Yeah.
Or as a character motivation for someone other than the victim.
Can you describe what fridging is?
Fridging. Fridging is a term. You guys can Google it, but in short, fridging started with the Green Lantern written by I forgot his name, and I should, because Judd Winnick. Green Lantern written by Judd Winnick in the mid-90s, where the main character's girlfriend was killed by someone who wanted to be his nemesis, and her body was stuffed into a refrigerator, and that was his motivation to continue to really hero up,
Okay.
But the only thing about his girlfriend's character was that she'd only been in the comic for like 4 or 5 issues. So her favorite color wasn't even written into her character. She was specifically there to be the love interest that gets killed. Now, how does that make the girl readers of Green Lantern feel? Gotcha. What does it say their point is? And I never considered it. So in literally being the guy that's going, hey, consider the point of view from black people, I have to consider the point of view from women, from LGBT, since I am a cis-het black male, and from the disabled point of view. Like, I had an interesting discussion with someone over Cyborg. Overexposure. Yeah, I had an interesting... That's better. an interesting conversation. I hit a keyboard thing. Don't worry about
Gotcha.
it. Had an interesting conversation with someone over Cyborg. I hated the idea that you finally get a black comic book character and he's disabled. Because you get a black comic book character, they're either disabled or a criminal or wrongfully convicted, but they are a convict. You see what I mean? But
Still in prison.
yeah. However, I didn't consider it from the standpoint of someone with disabilities, because Cyborg is an amputee who then uses his prosthetics to merge with every computer system on the planet to end up being one of the most powerful people out there. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. All right. So he's definitely a disabled hero who happens to be black. But again, these are all things that we have to consider now that communication is instantaneous and so easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah, and that's, like I say, a large part of my journey has been just learning what I don't know. Like I was saying, you and I have talked considerably, and a lot of that talk has just been me going like, I literally was unaware that I didn't know so much. And knowledge is power, and just knowing that you don't know a thing is the power to start learning about the thing.
Well, there's also the acceptance of that not knowing, and that's where we are right now as a society. But enough of the deep stuff. Okay, enough of the deep stuff, because I don't know that people tune in to actually watch us wax philosophical, but that's what they're getting. But I really don't want to turn this into the "you're gonna take your medicine" show. Why do people keep freaking messaging me? It's like, yeah, you know what?
Well, my friend Camo Heart, she posed the question that I then relayed to you, and then
I'm glad you did.
Yes, and I just mentioned it offhanded. I didn't realize it was going to be the topic for today's show, but she asked, why. In a game such as a role-playing game where you can create any character you want, why is representation for a person of color, why does it matter? Because you just make a character that is a person of color, and now there you go. And you have it in the game, you created it. Why does not having that representation from the game company matter? Why is that such a big deal, and why is fighting for more representation so important? And I posed that question to you, and we talked about it a little bit. And then a couple of days later, you came back like, "Oh man, I've been thinking about this. I got notes. I wrote an essay on this. We're gonna have a show about it." I was like, "Okay, well, I thought it was a good conversation topic. I didn't realize it was a show topic."
Oh yeah, and of course you replied with the perfect reply, which is, "That's nice. I'm going to bed. I'm going to sleep now."
Because again, our schedules are a little bit different here. So when you message me the night before, when I'm trying to get to bed early so that I'm awake to do your show in the morning,
our show.
So that when we do our show in the morning, I'm not sitting here with my coffee going. Yes, I'm going to say like, okay, well, that certainly is a topic, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, because sleep is more important than me trying to process this on dead brain in the night.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's not just actually fair. That is damn fair, because if I was on my way to bed and you hit me up like that, I'd be like, okay, man, that's nice. That's real nice. Yep. And we will talk about it tomorrow when the time comes.
Yep.
I'll make sure to show up early so that we can discuss this and go over the format. But in order to do that, I'm going to bed. Good night. Sweet. Good night. So long. Farewell. I'll be saying goodbye. Yeah. So today we are covering why not just make a person of color? Doesn't that,
can't you make your own inclusivity?
And it's a complex answer. If you guys were to look on Decker's on the book, on the Facebook, you guys will be able to see that today's topic is creating a person of color and why that don't count. Because it's not an individual thing. But there's so many things. I want to start off with a story. I play a homebrew game from Juan Punto Nunez. And his homebrew game is actually pretty deep. He and another friend of ours has been working through it for decades. Decades and decades and decades. Okay, just 2 decades, but still.
I mean, that's still decades and decades.
Yeah, oh no, it is decades. Because
okay.
it doesn't become the S. You don't get the S until you're at least 2.
Okay.
So, unlike decades of decades, because I don't want to live to be that old.
What is that, 40 at that 40 years at that point? 4 decades?
Decades of decades?
Oh no, okay, I see. Decades of decades.
Yes. But the truth is, I created a character of color who was an ambassador and he was a prince and all that stuff. And the moment I landed on the European analog, I was arrested as a criminal and thrown in jail with all my stuff taken away and no communication to my homeland.
Uh-huh.
Which,
was this a planned thing that you were like, oh yeah, this is part of how this character is gonna, or is this just like, no, he decided this is how it works in his world?
When I came to him with the character concept, he had already decided that's how it worked in his world, but he only communicates in subtext. So he said, are you sure you want to do that?
Oh, jeez. All right.
And I said, yeah, I mean, it's a great concept character and all that stuff. And he's like, all right. I mean, if that's what you're sure.
And so he didn't tell you this is how his world worked. He didn't tell, because this is a setting he has created. He could make this setting whatever he wanted. And he decided in this setting this is how it worked and did not inform you of this ahead of time.
Exactly. Now, here's the gig. It was a world that he and another friend of ours created, and he, by trade, is an anthropologist. So he doesn't quite understand that people don't automatically have the same cultural understandings as he does, because I went to school for things other than anthropology. And
an anthropologist does not understand that other people don't have the same perspective as him.
You're a historian.
Yeah, yeah.
How often do I have to remind you that not everyone looks at the nuances of things that happened in the past?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's just like people look at me and go, dude, people don't see the same things in film that you do.
It's true.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I went to school for this. I'm trained for this. You know, same with science. I'm like, wait, that wouldn't be scientifically accurate. But screw it, it's a comic book. You know.
Leave that conversation for Neil deGrasse Tyson's Twitter.
Yeah, right?
He'll tear apart any sort of scientific flaws in movies just fine.
And then he'll make it a point that, dude, it's just a movie. Yeah. And that is why he is so awesome. Oh, but yeah, so but what it really came down to was you know, all the things that happened. Granted, it was a homebrew world.
Sure.
And I used part of the homebrew world that he created. But I had no access to learning of the sociological, economic, all that other stuff. None of the consequences that came down from that. So though I was there as, you know, a guest of the nobility, the bureaucracy didn't go all the way down to the city guards. So when someone,
what do you mean the bureau, like in terms of he had not
the city guards, yeah, he didn't write down that the city guards were aware that my caravan was coming in. So when bandits came, everybody got arrested and everybody went to jail.
Okay.
Yeah, you see what I mean? And I was supposed to have diplomatic immunity, but the guards hadn't known about. They didn't even know diplomatic immunity was a thing because it didn't go that far down the totem pole. So here I am as the black dude in this European game setting, playing a black dude, and in my first 5 minutes, I ended up robbed and in jail.
Yeah, that's like just from a game perspective, to me, that rubs me the wrong way because you and I have talked about previously the idea that game expectations are such an important part of the enjoyment of the game for all parties involved. And that just seems like a violation of that Rule 1.
Oh, well, to his credit, okay, he did say that this was going to be a hardcore game.
Okay.
And when he says, now, I didn't quite get what hardcore meant. This was how I learned his definition of hardcore.
And the fact that he speaks in subtext.
Yeah. Oh, no, I only learned that recently because this game I'm talking about happened like 8 years ago. But I wrote out a person of color. But in doing that, I had to think out a whole lot of things in relation to the story.
Okay.
And then I realized, wait a minute, this is probably why a lot of people that role play, or why a lot of people of color don't role play. There is no us.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, and yeah, guys, it's hot in here. I've mentioned before how I didn't like Seventh Sea because in a
Right.
game about piracy, there's no African continent analog.
Yeah, not just that, but there's no, like, again, the historian side, have to see things through the history perspective. You know, piracy is completely, part of the economic system that involved a very robust slave trade.
Yes.
And, like, whether or not there's even in Africa, if there's not even a slave trade analog, like, what is your setting even?
Well, there is a slave trade analog that's in it in some of the supplement books. And I'm like, oh, so essentially we fall out of the ether and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
but to cover that whole, why not just make a person of color? I have to say that making a person of color is a lot more involved than simply making your human character with brown skin.
Right.
You know,
Which is a lot of the approach. To their credit, Wizards of the Coast and other, Paizo, other companies have started producing a lot more art with their characters of whatever class, whatever else, with various skin tones.
yeah,
Everywhere from dark to pale and everything in between. What they have not done, I should say, is exactly what you're describing right now. Which is that idea of creating a reason why they have different skin tones and what that even means.
Yeah.
Why people don't just develop dark skin living in European climates.
Right.
It's not really a thing.
exactly. So I wrote down a whole bunch of different stuff. And what I realized is that we're going to kind of just throw a Reader's Digest version of defining what person of color is.
Ah.
Okay. And it comes down to three things. And this is huge because if a person is just going to create a person of color character, the reason that it's difficult is because when they write that character, they have to take three things in mind: the culture of that person, the geography of that person's history, and the relativity of both of those things in relation to the other PCs.
Yes.
That is huge. Okay, and what do I mean by culture? Well, let's take child discipline as the current analog.
Sure.
It's fine to hit your kids in Africa. Nobody has a second look. Same in the Caribbean. Same in my neighborhood. Your kid's doing something wrong, you slap the hell out of them. That don't fly well in your neighborhood.
It's true. Maybe traditionally more so, but especially in the last 20 years or so, even spanking kids has become like, oh no, you don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
So
my grandparents, my grandparents smacked the hell out of my parents. My parents spanked my sister and I, and now we can't even do that. Or people go, oh my goodness, you're physically assaulting that child. But
right. And so how do these cultural traditions, like, one, what are the characters' cultural traditions? Like, you have to have at least four. You have to have at least four to make a vivid character. And as far as geography, where's this person's family from?
right.
How did they get here? Did Asians spontaneously erupt in freaking Waterdeep?
Right.
Is that a thing? If you're playing any kind of fantasy game, like, where do the people come from? Because the default is medieval Europe.
Yeah.
And then you have the Morgan Freeman and the Robin Hood movie from the 90s problem.
Yep.
But even then, they made it very clear, like, they were at war with the Moorish. I mean, it was the Crusades.
Which, to its credit, any sort of medieval movie usually at least correctly identifies where you would find darker skinned people and why they would be interacting with pale skinned Europeans. Like you say, okay, well, the Moors, a common enemy and a common enemy that Europeans were fighting, depending on the time period, and probably the only dark-skinned Africans that Europeans would have any contact with at the time. Cool. Likewise, okay, we want to have some Middle Eastern people. We got the Crusades. Cool. Something happened on the Crusades. Those people came back to Europe for one reason or another. We can now have this character in our movie, show, whatever, and explain it away that way.
Right.
But again, talking about the geography in games, when you don't have a Moorish civilization that you can interact with a geographic reason why they would be there, and their history and their culture and everything else, where did the dark-skinned people come from in your European analog?
And here's the second bit, okay? Using D&D only as an example, you have your alignment system. You've got your spectrum of lawful to chaotic, good to evil. Well, is lawful good the same in places where the laws are different? Yeah. You take the sub-Saharan African type mindset, and let's say you're trying to establish trade. To say, well, if I play this country, my character is evil in this lawful good campaign, that automatically, through no fault of your own, makes you a default villain. It makes you an outsider. And when it comes to just making a person of color, I think back to D&D.
Yeah.
And most of their places that have a non-European bent takes the very historical mindset of anyone that's not European, the way that we say is European, is by default barbaric. And that's where we get the shaman classes, the shaman magic, because you can't be a cleric, because cleric is our thing. You can't be a wizard. You have to be like a wild magician. And
or monks, which is now a common class, but a monk is a pretty non-European concept.
The monks that D&D uses, because there's a difference between Franciscan, Dominican, and Shaolin.
Yes, and the idea that there are monks in Europe, but they are not kung fu monks.
No.
And the idea that a monk is a combat idea, because a European monk is just a cleric.
Right.
But you have, we're going to create something different. We can't have, this race have their own clerics because they're monks. They do something different. Well, why does there have to be such a distinction there?
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. But there is a distinction within the rules, and what it comes down to is when a player wants to write a person of color for most games, they have to answer all those questions. And as a role player, they have to be able to answer those questions for the players that ask them.
Right.
Which adds up at the very end of the day to, I want to play a person of color, but I have to write a supplement book, if not an entire new world. And not having the option of going to the store and picking up a book, but having to write it and essentially self-publish as far as my game group is concerned, so that they can read up on it and see so that they can flesh out how their characters interact with the person based on their character histories. Do the people of Kryn believe that the Moorish analog are human beings?
Right.
That's a real question to ask.
Right. Do they believe they are equal human beings? If
they
do.
Yeah,
again, using the history analog, there wasn't a lot of, in medieval European civilization, there wasn't a lot of thinking that the Moors weren't human, but they were certainly infidels. They were certainly not of the same quality as God-fearing Christendom. And, whatever else the English may think of the French or whatever else, at least we can all agree that we hate the Moors because, well, they're different. And, there's...
move the mic a little closer to your face.
A little closer to my face? Okay. Sorry. Leaned back a little bit. I think that was part of the problem.
Yeah, that might be it.
But yeah, the idea there that historically, even if it's not yes or no. Like, are these people even human? There's so many shades of gray that you need to be considering, because it's not just, well, tell me about the culture of the Moors and write that down. Tell me about how that interacts with every other culture they've ever come in contact with for the last 2,000 years, and how that has influenced other people's views of them, their trade relations, their,
Yeah, I mean,
all of that.
That is a really, really big thing. So when it comes down to it, it's a great exercise. It's a great exercise to write 500 pages on this.
I mean,
if that's your bag, if that's your bag, that's your bag. But again, this is a real thing to where being a person of color wanting to get into role playing, if there isn't already that, then what option do I have? How can I feel as though I can play what I want?
Right.
Because the things that I want are based on how I see the world. And as not the target demographic, why should I bother?
Right.
Why should I bother playing the white guy or what normally happens? And this is yet another gaming experience. I like the cleric class, okay? Because I am a wizard, so casting magic, that's not exactly role-playing. But I like the cleric class. But whenever I play a cleric, honestly, whenever I role-play with a bunch of white people, the only characters they'll accept and interact with from me have to be Southern Baptist.
Like, in terms of how you roleplay them?
Yes. I mean, if I play a cleric, then I gotta be a preacher, and I gotta talk like this, and then we call on Hieronymus. And honestly, I really don't like having to coon or having to do the minstrel show thing. And by the way, this is what it looks like when a blood vessel bursts. I'm letting you guys know that right there. That's what it looks like. That's a bursted blood vessel. But yeah, so when it comes down to it, it's a cultural thing. But the crossover happens just like we talked about last week. There's only so much role playing that you can do where you don't insert a bit of yourself into it.
Sure.
And that lack of understanding of people of color in the regular world tends to bleed over to the lack of understanding of people of color in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because the player is still dealing with whatever they know. So with not having any readily available subsequent material for them to look stuff up, not saying there isn't in libraries, of course, we can always look up the history of black culture, but in context of there is not a whole lot of hell, give me a role-playing game besides Dungeons and Dragons.
World of Darkness.
Yeah, well, World of Darkness, that's a little different because that's set in modern times.
Okay, so another fantasy game.
Yeah. Ars Magica.
Okay,
there's really no African analog supplement materials for Ars Magica because you're playing a European wizard.
Right.
Right. So what are the African spells? What are what are some of the rituals that anybody could do if they were properly trained? And honestly, most of the time, the major crossover point in that would be the spell books. That is one of the solutions that I found. But again, a GM and a player sitting down writing spell books that are based on the Caribbean.
Right.
And
one of the two things I wanted to say. The first one's shorter ones. We'll start there. You mentioned how the players can struggle with only being able to roleplay what they know. From my perspective, yeah, I'm a middle-class white dude. Out of respect for anyone else, I don't play female characters. I don't play people of color because I know I cannot roleplay that with any degree of respect. Like, I just can't. It makes me feel bad that somehow I'm not being more inclusive in my role-playing of stuff, but I wouldn't be able to give any sort of respectable respectable
depiction.
Dimension. There we go. Thank you. To one of these characters, so I don't. But that being said, on the other subject of the spells,
Yeah.
a lot of what I've seen is the idea that the spells in the D&D spellbook, or whatever spellbook we're talking about, the magic is the same. The name of the spell might be different from culture to culture, or even wizard to wizard. They actually bring this up in Frostgrave, where they're like, you've got X number of spells here. I think it's 80 spells in the core book or something like that. And they say, like, look, here are the names that we are giving these spells. But every school of magic, every individual wizard, because they're so secretive, and a lot of times they've had to reinvent the wheel so many times to develop all of this magic, they give it different names. Whether it's because they literally don't know that something else exists, or they're like, well, I just spent the last 20 years developing this telekinesis spell, so I'm going to call it Doug's telekinesis spell, because you know what, I did it. One of the other great examples I can think of off the top of my head is the Penny Arcade group has a regular role-playing session with one of their characters, Jim Dark Magic, who is a very conceited, he's Jim Dark Magic from the New Hampshire Dark Magic.
Yes, my name is Dark Magic. This is my sister, Terry McEvil. And my cousin, what was it? Orphan Crippler. Yeah, so that's
so he's Jim Dark Magic of the New Hampshire Dark Magics, and he has he's a very conceited sorcerer, and he's trademarked all of his spells. So he's got Jim's Magic Missile, and he's got whatever else it is, and so he's trademarked and renamed all of his spells. So the idea, you could lean into an idea that the magic itself, the actual spell effect, doesn't change from culture to culture, but maybe the context of it does. The way they summon that spell, the way the ritual looks, the name of the spell, the magic itself may be similar, but a fireball may be a fireball no matter what culture is casting it.
That's fair dog. That's fair dog.
So I could see that going that way as well, though I would prefer to see some cool, unique magic that comes. We mentioned in a show a while ago about you were talking about how you could have a spider god and a whole culture around a religion for this deity that literally has no analog in a regular D&D setting.
Right.
I would love to see the cleric of the spider god's magic. I would love to see, and not just reskinning existing spells.
Yeah.
I would love to see some unique spider god magic. Like, give me that. I need that content.
Right. And honestly, now to say that all things are bleak, again, it's not the whole thing, but there are a lot of questions that have to be answered when it comes to putting people of color in established game settings. Like, what would the standard economic class be?
Yeah.
Do they have access to the same opportunities that someone else would have? Of course, the answer is probably no, but why?
Right.
Is it because of cultural identity? Is it because of nationalism? Is it because of the racial scar that goes through the United States? Did it go through there? And if so, what are those stories?
Yeah.
These are all things that a role player would have to answer in making a person of color. And again, this is what representation really means. It's not just, hey, that person has dark skin, and other than the dark skin, they're just like everybody else. The answer is they're not.
Right.
They have a different cultural history, different traditions. One of the things I put in my notes, like, as far as the culture thing goes, is would the character of color like the food that the players have access to?
Unlikely.
And I'm talking about you, Karen, with your bland ass potato salad.
It's true.
And would the PCs like the food of the food that the other people prepare? I mean, these are.
Is it spicier than mayonnaise? Because if so, I don't know. These European characters.
Tell that to the Chinese.
Oh, okay.
I mean that's I mean, if you have a character, and again, when I say people of color, I know I'm black, so you automatically think black. But what if like I said, one of the things that got me on this outside of the story of Juan Punto was I had some friends that were Hindu by birth, and they wanted to play D&D, but they wanted to write a campaign that went through Hindu mythology. And for 3.5, there was no analog.
Right.
So we had to create epic level characters that represented the gods of Hinduism, you know, and then had to write an analog for the cultural traditions and the history of India. India.
Yeah.
The physicist says to the historian.
Yeah.
The oldest culture in recorded history.
You're not going to get any sort of like me telling you this is not something that should exist already.
Oh no, I'm trying to illustrate how much work that was.
Yeah. Well, and again, as the historian, Europe, you can't have European history without having some way to tie in the cultures that Europeans interacted with. And India, I mean, not to put it too mildly, but there's a reason Columbus sailed across the Atlantic, and it was to find India. Like, he was literally so desperate to find a shorter, more economically viable way to connect his country with theirs that he discovered an entire new world. Like, well, discovered, obviously. We can go into that. But the idea is, like, India was an integral part of European history.
Right.
Like, as a trade partner, as a cultural influence. I mean, Arabic culture would not have been what it was without its interactions with India. European culture wouldn't have been what it was without its interactions with Arabic culture. Like, they're all tied together. So when you have a Tolkien-esque setting that just blithely ignores that, or at best has them be the villainous barbarians coming in from the east and south. Right.
And then as a person from those traditions, when you're friends, your very well-meaning cis het white male friends say, hey, why don't you play this game with us? These are some of the reasons that it's not an absolute, yeah, that sounds fun, 15 minutes into character creation.
Yeah.
Because the things that are important to our culture aren't exactly put out there, be it Hindu culture, a lot of the Asian cultures. Now, the Asian culture thing, that's a weird animal. If you look back, head down to backinthedeck.com and look up the Fluff Talk stuff. We did two of the games that revolved around Asian culture, being the second edition D&D supplement, Car Tour.
Right.
Because we did, or Kara Tour, Kara space TUR. And we did Legends of Five Rings. Okay, we didn't do Oriental Adventures, but we did those two because what we had, again, was much like a blaxploitation movie, which was middle-class white people writing the history of Asiatic cultures without very many advisors or editors or other Asian writers. So I have a base understanding of what I think this culture is like, so I'm going to write it down. But there are things that go with every single culture that is very difficult to see if you don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
And I wanna turn this over, not turn the show over, but we're gonna push this over into since we're talking about representation, the whole idea of the female thing. Like when we look at D&D or Innomine or Legend of Five Rings or all that stuff, playing a female character comes with two layers of difficult representation.
Yep.
The representation of how are women depicted in the narrative and how do the players interpret that depiction.
Yep.
And for those of you older role players out there, you already know, we're talking about chainmail bikinis.
I was just about to jump into chainmail bikinis.
Of course we're jumping in. That's not just the elephant in the room, that is the herd in the room. The whole question of the higher the bonus to the female's armor, the less armor there actually is.
Yep. It's gotten a lot better in recent depictions, I should say. most of the new stuff, again, especially credit where it's due, Wizards of the Coast has been doing a lot to try and reverse a lot of the damage that's been done with D&D in the past.
Well, they've hired a lot more women and a lot more people of color.
It's true. Absolutely true. But I'm just saying, like, all the new depictions of stuff coming out, all of those women are wearing plate mail. They're wearing, cleric robes. They're wearing, nothing particularly skimpy, sexy, or revealing about it. It's a woman wearing armor.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? And what you're mentioning here is something that's absolutely infected every level of, I would say, nerd fandom. I mean, I was reading a thing not too long ago. The new Star Wars character played by Gwendolyn Christie in the new films, Captain Phasma.
Yeah, Captain Phasma.
Wearing very shiny stormtrooper armor. People were complaining that this character didn't look female enough. It was not feminine enough because it was just stormtrooper armor with a woman inside.
But stormtrooper uniform, the definition of a uniform,
the literal definition
is one form. It is to be so uniform, singular in form, that there is no difference between each individual one except for what the uniform conveys, i.e. Captain Phasma being up higher ranking and silver.
Yep. And it is a unique set of armor for this unique character. Great. But the idea, like, this was a thing being brought up, like, hey, we need to talk about the fact that this character is not feminine enough. It's like, no, we don't. It's a woman in armor. Literally, a female person wearing armor. That's it. That's all we need to talk about.
Who particularly is doing a job that does not require femininity.
Correct.
She is wearing the clothing,
military armor.
Yeah, she's wearing the clothing and the tools for the job that she's doing. Gender be damned.
Yep.
And that's really a closer step. That's a step in the right direction.
I would absolutely
agree. Is the job requires this, so do the job.
Correct.
The next step is to show what toll that takes on her psychologically.
Right.
But that has to be written by someone who understands the different tolls that one particular thing takes on a person based on their culture, their gender, their, I mean, that's a really big thing.
Well, I wanted to hit on the second point you brought up, not just how the company is depicting women in the setting as that first tier, but how the players are as well.
Yes.
Something I struggle with a great deal as a DM, which is usually the role I find myself in most role-playing games. I struggle with having, when I'm creating NPCs, the default that I start with is a human male.
Right.
And then I have to go, okay, no, this is a world where we've got not just human males and not just human females, but also all kinds of other races of both genders.
Yeah.
And so I struggle a lot with that. And so kind of the default in any setting with the players, with the DM, whatever, is going to be determined to a certain level by that. Are there any women being represented in the NPCs? For those of you, that stands for non-player characters. The tavern
like
owners,
shopkeepers,
the city guards, the whatever else. And it's okay if in your setting or in your story, the city guardsmen are all men. Maybe that's a thing in this city. Okay, fine, but not everyone in the city's men. Think about these sorts of questions. If you're going to gender a specific thing on purpose, why?
Exactly. Exactly.
And if the city guardsmen are all men, is it okay? Well, maybe it's explicitly a sexist thing. Maybe like seriously. I mean, that's in Star Wars. That is one of the underlying things. All of the officers are human males.
White human males.
Pretty exclusively.
Yeah. Matter of fact, British human males.
Yeah. But the in-universe description for that is the Empire itself is a very sexist, human-centric organization. And so for them, that is a huge part of their identity as the Galactic Empire, is it is a human-dominated, a male-dominated thing. It is very rare to find women or aliens in any positions of power within the Empire. And if you're doing that, make that a part of your setting. Write that in as like, look, this is like this despotic, authoritarian empire is a sexist, xenophobic entity. We're writing that into its description. So you know what? It makes sense that all of the officers are human men. Sure. If you had a setting in your D&D and that was the case, okay, I would totally buy that. But you got to write that in. You have to make that explicitly clear that you didn't just forget to put women in your setting and not represent them.
And you also have to make that information available to your players during the time of character creation. Because this is a huge part of the social contract when it comes to gaming. Like, what game are we actually playing? You know?
Right.
Because, again, I like playing variety. Excuse me. I don't always play a human. You know, I've been leaning a lot more toward dwarves lately.
I do like dwarves. They're one of my favorite fantasy races.
But, you know, I can't say I like elves because I don't like things whose major power is I'm better than you because.
Yeah.
Although I understand why they're better at everything than humans are, and the real answer is because they're older and they stay young longer.
Yep.
So they have way more time to practice, and they don't come out the house until they have a century experience with anything.
Yep.
So, okay, I get it. I just don't like it. But when it comes to the stuff I want to play, one of the hurdles that I've had over the past hundreds of years is the player's interpretation of what my person of color means. And since there isn't a whole lot of information as to what is it, there's not a whole lot of information that says what it's like to be this person from the companies. I mean, yeah, you want to know what dark elves are like. Okay, are dark elves analog for black people in D&D? Because if so, that kind of sucks.
Right, which they don't seem to
are
be.
Dwarves? Are barbarians? Well, you know, that's a big question. But most of the games write the other as vilified. They're very nationalistic in their writing, and again, they reflect the times that they're written in. Let's see. Oh, we got someone here saying,
stuff in the chat I wanted to get to when you were
done.
done.
The need to feminize her uniform is a symptom of the issue because exploitation of her sex is a knife that cuts both ways. So true. I'm guessing this vixen person is female. But
and to address Curran directly, he posted a little bit up there. We're not going to address Phasma in terms of like how that character didn't do anything in the movies. That's not
in this episode.
Not in this episode.
Okay, when we have a Star Wars Day, and since Doug is on the show, there's gonna be a Star Wars Day.
There's already been Star Wars Days. There will be more Star Wars Days.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
Yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, the exploitation of her gender is a knife that does cut both ways, because that is something that a lot of role-playing games don't really touch on either. Is that fine line of, well, essentially the fine line of having a vagina.
Yep.
You know,
what does that mean?
If you're too manly, you're too manly.
Yep.
But if you're too girly, you're not fun. And it's like, well, what do you do? And all that's, you know, like, at what point do you stop being female? Do you stop being male? You know, it's gender roles having a huge impact on the perception of the characters that are written and played. Yeah. There's a big trend in RPGs of males playing females.
Yes.
And then turning them into hussies.
Yep. Turn them into, like, well, I'm playing a female. Well, I don't know how to be a female because I'm not a female. So let me think about what I can play this character as. Well, I guess she's just going to seduce all of the men. Mm-hmm. And her entire worth in our game is going to be defined by her ability to sleep with the villain or whatever it is. Which I hate that. Again, part of the reason I do not play female characters, I don't want to fall into that trap.
Hey, you know what? At least you're conscious enough to see that it is a possibility.
It's absolutely a possibility, and it's a possibility that I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone. Whether, most of the gaming groups I play with, again, by definition, are male. Mm-hmm. Very rarely has there been females in my role-playing games, and more often than not, it's predominantly white. It's just, as
soon as you guys play a game that I like, I'll show up. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do soon. But the idea is I'm trying to not fall into that trap. But almost all of the females depicted within the games of any game I played, it's like, well, we've got prostitutes, mm-hmm. we've got so and so's wife.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, well, the character we're interacting with is the innkeeper, and the innkeeper's wife is delivering food in the background.
Yeah.
Cool, sure. So there's a female dwarf there, fine. There's a player character who is a female, and may have zero indication whatsoever that has any difference at all, other than the fact that there's an F on the character sheet.
Yeah.
You know, which you could argue whether that's a good thing or bad thing. I would say, well, it's better than being a whore. You know, it's better than like trying to seduce everybody, because that's the only way you know how a female could interact with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not very representative of, you know, any sort of depth of a character and defining or why you put that F on the character sheet.
Right.
You know, so it seems like an unnecessary thing to do without a reason, I guess, if you're the role player.
I'm exactly there.
Yeah.
Because oh yeah, forgot to mention that one trope. Wow, that fighter is kicking everyone's butt, and then they take off the helmet to reveal, it's a woman. Like their gender determines whether or not they can learn a skill.
Yep.
You know, I mean that's just, you know.
You know, and again, if you're creating a world where women have limited opportunities for skill or for economic advancement, and that's written into your setting for some reason, okay, then sure, it would absolutely be impressive for in a world where women are not allowed to pick up swords.
Hang on, in a world where women.
Sorry. Imagine a world.
What would you do if I told you that women can drive, Neo? Anyway,
but if it's a setting where women cannot fight for whatever reason, they can't be in the army, they're not allowed to be warriors, they have to do something else, then a female character who is a warrior is going to draw some attention. But there's a reason for that. There's a set, you've written that into the setting. You are now creating an actual depth to this character, and you can write a backstory about why she is bucking tradition to do the things she's doing, and now it's not just an F on a character sheet.
Right. And so one of the big things. Oh wait, we've got oh, we got a new person in the chat. How you doing, Sherry? Yeah, we talked about that a little earlier. You have to take into consideration what race you're playing.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean that's a really big thing.
All those sexy elves out there, sexy female elves. Yep. I want to play more sexy female dwarves. You know. Get some beard on beard action there.
You know, honestly, I just want to see an obese elf.
Yeah.
I want to see an elf that weighs 450 pounds.
I'm going to write one into my set now.
You know, a magic slinging elf, let's say, that has spent the past 200 years studying and eating. That's all.
Yep.
No exercise.
Locked up in the library.
Yeah, and they just come out like, okay, I'm going to go on the adventure. You know, yeah, I know, it's fine. It's fine. You just tuned in, darling. I'm glad you're here. Everybody say hi to Sherry as well.
Hi, Sherry.
But yeah, I mean, seriously, I wanna see those breaks from traditions, because again, variety is variety and representation is a real thing. Now, there were two examples of books that kind of touched on it.
Okay.
One of them is a Pathfinder book. I'm looking up that, but they actually have a character by the name of Old Man Matimbe. And he is the African magic user dude that lives in another dimension that comes out of that dimension every 1,000 years to teach 3 apprentices, and then he goes away. He's essentially like the Lady of Pain, as it were.
All right.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. Although, yes, he is the Mystic Negro. Like literally the Mystic Negro, but there is a full backstory. They do actually write like more about his culture and his heritage, and you know what, like they write about the tribes that worship him as gods and what their day-to-day life is. So that's a good thing. And ironically, I only saw one major well done representation of other of the non-represented things, and you know what that was? The Book of Erotic Fantasies for 3.5.
I did not even know that book existed, but
really?
Hang on, let me get on my Amazon store right now. I'm gonna
Don't.
Is it that bad?
Well, here's the gig. I was working at a game store when that book came out.
Oh boy.
And there was so much pushback. Oh my God. No, we can't tell. And we don't want to know about role players having. And it's not Christian and satanic panic. And you know what the damn book turned out to be about?
Tell me.
The reproductive practices and organs of various fantasy creatures. How long does how does a gelatinous cube reproduce? How long are elves pregnant for, and what are the trimesters actually like?
No, I changed my mind. I really do want to read this book now. that content is directly applicable to how I like interacting with these worlds. Like, I need to know weird minutia like that.
Yeah, no. Truth, it's good information.
Yeah.
But it's called erotic fantasies,
Yeah,
and there's
that's not
nothing
erotic.
that gives me the sense of erotic fantasy more than going on food runs for my pregnant half elf and half dark elf significant other, because if not, she'll stab me in her sleep.
Yeah. Well,
So
something that, just as a side note on that subject that has always amused me. So in D&D, you've got your various races, your elves, your humans, your dwarves, and all that. You've got half elves, which from a genetic standpoint means that elves and humans are close enough to create a hybrid race.
correct.
You've got half orcs, which means that humans and orcs are genetically close enough to create a hybrid race. Not a lot of like half dwarves you ever hear about. Not a lot of half gnomes, or for that matter, any hybrids between any races but human and one of these others. Which tells me that the common ancestor between dwarves and humans is further removed than humans and orcs.
Yeah.
And that, you have these splinter races that are so genetically different that their biology is fundamentally different than a certain, than some of the others. But for whatever reason, orcs, humans, and elves are very closely related, much more so than I think any of them would be comfortable admitting.
Yeah. And but here was my personal punchline to the whole book of erotic fantasy drama was that the book that no one said boo to, at least in 3.5 and 3rd edition, that was actually aptly named, was the Book of Vile Darkness. If you guys have a chance to check out the Book of Vile Darkness from Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, oh my God, it is so substantial. Like,
is it both vile and also dark?
It backs up like the Satanic Panic. This is a terribly dark book where it's like, okay, how many orphans do you have to kill to get their feces to do this kind of spell? That's the kind of stuff that's in the Book of Vile Darkness. And nobody said boo. Nobody said boo to the Book of Vile Darkness. Nobody knew. But the Book of Erotic Fantasy, oh no, call the preacher man.
Yeah. So that gelatinous cube sex is going to be, that's what's going to ruin kids.
Hey, man.
That's going to...
It's hot and squishy.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
But yeah. So yeah.
What is it? Your mama's so fat that she couldn't even fit
No, your mama jokes. No, your mama jokes. Because let's face it, nothing gets better than the two main Yo Mama jokes, which is Yo Mama so fat it takes 2 trains and a bus to get on her good side, and your mama's teeth are so messed up when she smiles it looks like she got a mouthful of dice. Anything beyond that,
those are pretty good too.
Yeah,
I heard a good one lately, which was Your Mama's so fat Thanos had to snap twice.
Oh damn!
right, that's pretty good.
Or Thanos should have had to clap.
Okay, whatever it is, it's
So but yeah, anything beyond that though, yeah. So let us know what you guys had to let us know what you guys are talking about in the comments. But I've got a serious announcement. As some of you guys that have been tuning in all week know, I've been trying to do a little stuff on the Twitch. Ooh. And on the Twitchy. So this is a big thing. So I would like, I'm making the announcement that probably sometime after San Diego Comic-Con, we're gonna start live streaming a game once a month.
Ooh,
one day a month. Well, unfortunately, you're not invited to this one.
Not necessarily playing, but I would watch it.
Oh, well, you may be able to, you may not, because it's going to be one Sunday a month.
Okay.
Like, we're going to be doing this show, and then I'm going to pack up all the gear and take it to the studio and live stream the game. Now, I'm thinking in Nomine because I haven't told an angel or demon story for a long time, and the game is really big in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And terribly small here.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know what? Hey, again, this is like American culture. So,
Yeah.
trying to get my hair situated, all right, guys? I don't do the show with my hair down. Yeah, so I'm thinking like sometime after San Diego Comic-Con, we're going to be doing that. I'll keep you guys updated, but I want a diverse cast of players.
Nice.
I am so, and we'll talk about this in a week or two. I'm so nervous because I'm going to have people of color in a game based on Christian mythology.
Yeah, that's
But
a
every
minefield.
person of color has a different interpretation of Christian mythology.
Yep.
And howdy. So
If you're looking for an atheist middle class white guy, maybe I can jump in on Christian mythology. But
you won't have the time. As
I
I
won't.
said, it'll be directly after this show on those days.
yeah,
So, and we'll probably be going, I don't know what time the shows will start. That all depends on how freaking crack militaristically I can get across town and set up the studio there.
okay.
So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. I'm looking to partner up with a couple other channels and have like a different guest Skype in as a player every week, and we'll see how that's going. Let me know in the comments. Like, let us know what you guys would like to see. Because I'm thinking a nominee, but there might be a better game out there that you guys would suggest. The one I will say is off the table is 5th edition D&D, because everyone's doing that.
What
And
about you pitched me on the idea of the setting midnight, and would you run a D&D game set in that setting and stream it? Because I would love to see that.
You know, I thought about Mid-Knigget. The thing about Mid-Knigget is it has one premise, and I don't know if I can get a lot of good role-playing out of a lot of characters, because its premise is really simple, which is Lord of the Rings if the Fellowship lost.
Yeah, but that's
Okay.
I feel like that's
That's
got some potential for a good game in it.
Yeah. So, seriously, it's kind of, it's a really, I'm thinking about it. I mean, it's 3.5, so it's D20 3.5.
Would you be
so
able to change it over to a 5th edition rule set?
I probably could if I spent the time it took me to learn the 5th edition rule set and to get good enough at it to do the translations.
That's a hurdle. Yep.
Yeah, that is a hurdle. That is most definitely a hurdle.
Yeah.
And nobody likes GURPS, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's like people talking about like, well, I'm debating my new computer, and that guy in the back's like, Linux, new Linux. No, there's a reason I'm not doing Linux, but you should do Linux. Look, Rick Hardslab, we know we're not gonna do Linux. There's a reason for it, okay? But it's so much better to boot up so much. Look, I know we're not doing GURPS, okay? We're just not. I'm sorry.
Oh man, I like you when you've had enough coffee.
It takes a few cups, but
know.
once I'm
And
there,
no other time. No,
Yeah.
that I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
that's fair. I only like me when I've had a few cups of coffee, and no other time.
Oh man. So well, yeah, it looks like Hard Slab would watch Midnight if I ran it, but we'll see. So yeah, and I mean that's one of the really big things on that. So as far as I have a challenge to the people that are watching, which is real simple. Write up a person of color actually considering all of these things: what culture they're from, what geographic location. Do you have to draw a map? How much time it actually takes you to do that in relation? Just do it on your own time, and send it in. Send in your write up, and who knows if we don't have that many subscribers right now, which is kind of cool. That means I won't have to read through a whole lot of them. So I can say this now.
Yeah.
I can be like, no, write up your characters and send stuff in and let me know. And who knows? if I see one that just really jumps out, maybe we'll Skype on next week's show.
Yeah.
And say, hey, what did you think about this? And we'll see like how that comes out. Because we're actually, it's possible for us to take a Skype client now.
Yeah, I'm
so
into
we can be
that.
like, hey, look, we got the guy on the Skype, and then they go, yeah, hey, we're doing the Skyping thing. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Well, we've got one person going, yeah, I like that. So yeah, but
I mean, I've already got. I think I was mentioning to you earlier, might have been before the show, but I've got a setting that I set all of my D&D games in, which has a lot of unexplored area on purpose in the setting. That would be perfect for adding a lot of good, rich culture and history to other areas of the world.
Right.
So I would love to engage in this challenge at least to one degree or another.
Yeah, you can't do. You're part of the show. I can't Skype
I didn't
with.
say that you were going to read mine.
Oh.
I just want to do the homework
So
because
just
the homework
do it.
sounds fun.
Yeah, so just do it. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, what am I going to do? Like, oh, that's a really good write-up. I think I'll Skype with the guy sitting across the table from me.
Oh man,
Yay.
that'd be great. Like cut to me, and then just like cut to me like on my phone, Skyping over here. That'd be
Yeah. That's-
quality right there, everyone. That's
Okay, there is ego, and then there's ego.
Hey, you
And
said
we're-
you liked me after this much coffee.
Yeah, but not enough to call you Kurt Russell. I mean, seriously.
fair enough. Fair enough.
You know. But yeah, so I mean that's and again that's this. These are some of the things we got coming down the pike.
Yeah. Speaking
yeah.
of Kurt Russell, I was going to say, one of the amusing role-playing stories from my past was a guy who played a character named Kurt Russell, and he decided he was only going to communicate in Kurt Russell quotes. So he had printouts of Kurt Russell quotes, just terrible one-liners from all the Kurt Russell movies he could come up with. And every time he would interact with someone, he would just like reference the sheet. He had it like broken up between what types of conversations he would be having, and we kept trying to trip him up. We kept trying to find a thing he couldn't respond to with a Kurt Russell quote, and we didn't. We never actually tripped him up.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in case you were
wow.
wondering, there's a lot of very effective Kurt Russell quotes you could base your entire character on if you want a weird one-dimensional Kurt Russell character.
You know, I would only do that based on James Brown screams or Nicolas Cage temper tantrums. You know, which would be awesome if I was just, no! Hey, we're playing a White Wolf game. Damn it, let me get my running shoes.
Good.
Hey, welcome to the LARP today. I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! Oh, yeah, that's Solar in the back.
Yep.
That's just,
Yep.
it's just what he's doing.
Having a freak out.
But yeah, that's of course. So, yeah, so what I'm going to say is, forgot to tell you guys, one of the things I want to talk about was the GoFundMe page. I'm sure you guys are noticing how when I switch back and forth between Doug and myself, there's a little moment of pause.
Yep.
We're saving up for a switcher, and there's a link down there before the arguing section to the GoFundMe. We're at $400 now. We're trying to get to about $1,500 to fund the website and to buy the switcher, because the switcher itself is $1,000. And I added a link to the switcher so y'all can see what we're buying and how much it costs, because I believe in full disclosure.
How we are spending your money.
No, just how we're spending the money that you choose to donate to us, because once they give it up, it's ours. You know, you lose.
How we're spending my money.
No, how we're spending Back in the Deck's money on making Back in the Deck better. I wish it were my money. I swear, you know, with the 400 that we were at right now, I could think of quite a few things I would buy, like a brick of the new Hero Clicks, which is coming out based on Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, next week is BTAS Hero Clicks, so you're coming in.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah?
Well, I saw you like kind of salivating over the Deadpool and X-Force set last week.
It's true. It did look pretty good,
And-
and if you give me some time to get my mitts on them to repaint them, I would love to have a well painted Deadpool and the X-Force Hero.
I'll
Clicks.
send you a link. It's $16 for that set, dude.
All right.
That's
I'll just grab that
$16
then.
for all 6 of them. Grab it, repaint it yourself, and come hit me up.
All right. All right,
But
into
next
that.
week, Batman the Animated Series.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun table talk. Or God, I don't know what show we'll be featuring that on next week. Probably Coffee and Conversations, because
This is a
yeah,
good one.
yeah, probably because Sable might be into all that. Because I swear, my new guy,
Yeah.
he loves Marvel and Batman.
Well,
And-
there's, you've talked about this, how you dislike Marvel because it's so street level, but Batman is the closest to a good street level that you get out of a lot of.
See,
only because he doesn't have superpowers, mind you.
Let me clear something up, and I'm sorry. Money is a superpower.
Oh, I agree.
Ask anybody with it. No, I'm making this very clear.
Yeah.
It's not that I dislike Marvel. I do not enjoy Marvel's street level.
That's right.
Okay, I enjoy DC street level better than I like Marvel street level. But man, do I mess with some Marvel Cosmic. I
Yes.
love their outer space stuff.
Yeah.
And I like it more than I like DC's outer space stuff. But I like DC's magic stuff better than I like Marvel's magic stuff. So
Makes
it all
sense.
comes down to they're equal because I follow writers, not companies.
Yep.
So
And you can write a great story in either setting. It just depends on, what you're trying to do. And
right.
great news. Some people like some stuff, other people like other stuff. And if you write a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to have something for everyone in both companies.
You think?
Who knew?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so just, we're actually finally running out of time. I say finally, but no, we're actually running out of time.
Okay.
So what I am going to say, guys, is thank you so much for coming into the show and for putting up with our conversation. Where can they get a hold of you, Mr. Doug?
Well, I'm Dig Duggernaut on Twitter. That's always a good one. You'll see me on Deckers on the Book. I'm around there. I mean, that's mainly it as far as online presence goes.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's cool. And again, thank you guys for showing up to this week's edition of the Game Gallery. We didn't focus on a specific game this week because, again, that question was big. So,
yeah. Well, we focus on role-playing games as a concept, and we mainly hit on D&D because it's so prevalent, the racial issue in D&D.
yeah, it's true. It had a lot to do with this stuff. So I guess we covered D&D this week. Yeah. But thank you guys. And again, Camel Heart, this one was for you. Okay, and if you guys want to send us any questions that we might turn into a show, and you never know if we're going to turn it into a show, but if it's a good question that makes us go, oh man, we got to talk about that, I tell you what, we're going to be talking about that, then feel free to send us, and of course, where do you guys send the thing if you decide to make the character? Well, that's easy. You can send us your emails and all that stuff to wow, I'm just having so many problems.
Stand by
Yeah.
for technical difficulties.
Oh, okay. I see what the problems on these are. But you can send them to us. Like, our music is just being so irritating. But you can send us an email and all that jazz. Again, this is just being real fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, we're
but-
growing pains.
Yeah.
Growing pains.
But send us an email at backinthedeck@gmail.com. You can also, as some of you guys in the comment section already know, follow us on YouTube/BidP. That is YouTube/BID space P. Follow us on Twitter at backinthedeck. That's where we do a lot of announcements, and we're going to start doing polls and all that jazz. Join the Deckers on the Book on Facebook.
Yeah.
That is how to get everything that we're doing in the comment section right now, live, it never ends in Deckers in the Book, and that's one of the things I like about it. Now, if you guys are a lot like us, you can not spend all day watching YouTube, right? But you want to hang out with us and you want to listen to us, and that's fine. Go over to SoundCloud/BidP, that's little b, little I, little d _p, and there you will find our archives of all of our shows in audio form that you can download as an MP3 for absolutely free as our gift to you to say, hey man, thanks. And of course, follow us on Instagram to see what we're preparing for and all that other stuff. And that's Instagram/backinthedeck. And of course, you can always check out the website at www.backinthedeck.com while it's still free, because we're making it a sign-up members thing. And once that happens, it'll be $7 a month to get access to all of our content, interact with us live, and have a special chat that's not seen on the YouTubes and all that jazz. And again, this is all fun and games until somebody loses an eye. But check out our GoFundMe page, and again, Share all of this stuff with your friends, because the thing about being a nerd of color is we tend to be hidden and clustered in our little groups because we're tired of getting screamed down. But I'm gonna say that if you are sick and tired of being screamed down and people tell you that you can't like what you like or see what you see because of the color of your skin, content of your character mostly, and race, religion, creed, sexual identification, gender identification, whether or not you can walk, or again, if people underestimate you because of the circumstances of your birth, you just tell them to take all those cards and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week on Game Gallery.